yang nunak yok visuruk pang miyako takulitan na yasiksang lesalok tinikay in mama
Ubumi Uvanga Atiga Margaret Nuxan Elias. Good afternoon. My name is Margaret Nuxan Elias. I'm your host for the {NA:NA:MINIᖅŒt} show. We are broadcasting live out of Inuvik at the Inuit Communication Society. On today's episode, we have our guest. His name is Kyle Nakuksiak Alikak. Did I say your name right?
Close enough. It's not Kusi, but
when I overthink it, I tend to say the name incorrect.
hey, I'm
Sorry.
the same way. I'm the same way. But yeah, thank you so much for having me.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Doing well.
Yeah, that's good. So, this is like the second time that you and I are ever meeting each other. And I spoke to you briefly yesterday, and I explained how I like to start every episode of the show. So, on every single episode, the way I like to start the show is for our guests to introduce themselves the exact same way they would introduce themselves to an elder. So, if you can just tell us who you are, who your family is, and where you're from.
Absolutely. So my name is Kyle Natkusiak Alikuk. My family is the Alikuk family in Inuvik.
Mhm.
My father was Billy Natkusiak Alikuk, and that's his adoptive family is the Alikuks, and
Mhm.
his biological family is the Bankslands from Uluhuktuk, formerly
Yeah.
known as Holman.
Yes. So, that's your family, and I would like you to tell us where you're from.
So I'm from Edmonton. I was born and raised here, and actually just outside of Edmonton, a small town called Leduc, but it's pretty much Edmonton now. The towns are, I mean, the cities are so close to each other now that um,
Mhm.
Leduc is pretty much Edmonton. But that's
Yeah.
based out of.
Can I ask you how your weather is there right now?
It's actually not too bad.
Yeah.
We've had a really cold winter, uh,
Mhm.
but lately it's been all right. Warm enough for for me to go take my dog out for a walk and not freeze to death.
Mhm.
Not a whole lot of snow. So
Have you ever been here to Inuvik?
yes, I have. So shortly after I was born, my dad moved my sisters and I up north to Inuvik, and I was so young that I barely have any memory of it. I remember being in school in the wintertime, and it was 24-hour darkness. So I remember going out for recess and it was dark. And then in the summertime, I remember there was just a lot of mosquitoes.
Oh, I don't really know if there's a lot of mosquitoes. People say that, but I compare everything to Tuck, Tuktoyaktuk, and they have a lot of mosquitoes.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
yeah, but the weather here is it's warmed up so much. The roads are a little slippery, like just walking outside, I feel it. But I think we're in for like gusting to 60 kilometers an hour winds.
Oh, wow.
It's warm. Like my truck said -13, which is really warm for Inuvik. It was just like -40 the other day. So I think we're in for a little bit of a windstorm around here.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't matter where you are. It kind of seems like it's a wild ride, weather-wise.
That's so true.
You never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah. So, getting to know you a little bit, you would be considered being called an urban Inuk. So
Yes.
you are Inivaluk or Inuk, and but you live out in the city and you grew up out in the city.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you can describe what that was like and how you reconnected to your culture.
Yeah. It's a it's an interesting experience, being so far removed from Inuit culture and Inuit ways of life, living close to the land. Like I said, I grew up in a very quiet, sleepy town in Alberta, and it was very much a farm town for many years. And a lot of my friends growing up were farm kids. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
think prairies and yeah, a lot of hockey players and team sports and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and yeah, growing up, I was kind of the only, besides my sisters and my dad, the only Inuit that I knew of growing up. We didn't really have a close connection to our family up north.
Mm-hmm.
Um, growing up, I always kind of like I knew of our ancestry and cultural heritage, but um, it wasn't a part of daily life. Like I can remember vividly. My dad would have, like I said, a mucklucks sitting by the TV and an ulu sitting by the TV, and there was a
Mm-hmm.
muskox skull in the basement. So I was always like kind of curious of like, where did these come from, and how does that play into my identity, and especially going through junior high and high school. Those are difficult times for anybody. Doesn't matter what your background is, just trying to find your identity and find out who you are as a person. And then having on top of that, like I said, most of my friends were farm kids, and I was kind of the only brown kid. And um, so that kind of played into a lot of like identity issues growing up, and um, reconnecting to culture didn't really come into play until later on in my life. But like I said, I always kind of knew something was there, and I was always very curious about it. And I think naturally I gravitated towards um, art and different forms of art that would, I guess, would consider me an outsider or an outcast. Like growing up, I was very much into skateboarding, and that's a very like individualistic kind of sport, and you don't really need to be around many people, and you just you just kind of rely on yourself and art. Skateboarding encompasses a lot of different forms of art, like music and graphic arts and graffiti and clothing and tattoos and music. And um, I think art, mainly for me growing up, especially in high school, was kind of a way to, dip my toes into being an artist, and which would eventually lead to me kind of reconnecting to my Inuit ancestry and heritage.
Yeah. So in like when you first started art, you were already interested in art,
Yeah,
like, and then when you were looking for the connection, that's when you like focused on Inuit art.
yeah. So like from a very young age, I was always interested in drawing, and my parents were very encouraging of my art. They obviously saw sort of talent there, and I um, I took art in high school, which
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really like formal training. Art in our high school was kind of just like an easy way out to like not take school seriously, and it was just a course where you kind of do whatever you want. And I mean, they provided a space for you to create.
Yeah.
And I think back then, mainly like the subjects that I would draw was a lot of like kind of realism, like pencil sketch work, but really had no connection to um, myself as an Inuk, and kind of Inuit culture. And that came like really later on in life, in my early 20s, when my dad passed away. I was really like in a place of just kind of looking for almost self healing. And I always kind of knew that art was something I enjoyed, and started to really look into who my dad was, his upbringing, where he came from, and really started getting more interested in all of that, and seeing myself and how I fit into all of that in our family.
Mm-hmm. So you have taken like that and amplified it, if I can say so myself, because we talked about it briefly, but you've done a lot of work. Like you've managed to um, accumulate and do a lot of work that falls in with the Inuit art, and then bringing it out, like making it tangible, right? Like because like my sister's an artist and she does art for herself, but she rarely puts it out there for the world to see. But you've like I have a collection in front of me that I'll get to, and you've made it available for everyone.
Yeah, and that's really something I really like did not intend. Like your sister, I started out doing art just for myself. It was just out of like pure enjoyment of just drawing, and coming up with creative ideas and putting them onto pen and paper. And
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I think in like shortly after my dad passed away, that was in 2016, I want to
Mm-hmm.
say. And I would randomly share pieces of art here and there on Instagram, not really expecting anything of it,
Yeah.
um, and just kind of sharing it with whoever wanted to see it.
Yeah.
But just putting it out there, and yeah, not really knowing where it would go.
So, if you don't mind, can I go through what I have here?
Absolutely.
And if you can tell me a little bit about it. So, the first thing that I have is this thing. It's a card.
Yeah. So I believe that's the original, and that is watercolor and pen on a piece of watercolor paper.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a commission for a, like a button or a pin.
Yeah.
And um, I was asked to do that project from Jason.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just that's kind of really when I started trying to experiment with uh, like more of a tattoo style in art, with like hard black lines and bright color and negative space. And I even think that one has kind of like old English, uh, what do you call it, font or
Mm-hmm.
typeface, which is very popular in kind of, yeah, traditional, like old school, uh, yeah, Americana tattoos. So I thought it was kind of like a cool, bold design for a pin.
Yeah. Jason might not get it back. The next one I have is this one. I like this one.
Yeah, so this was a very fun one. This is very early on when I started to experiment with digital media.
Mm-hmm.
So I was lucky enough to get a grant from Edmonton Arts Council, and this grant was for like, like experimenting with new media and exploration of new work. and digital art had always been something I'd wanted to try, but didn't have the means to do so. So I was able to buy myself an iPad and an Apple Pencil, and I downloaded a very common illustrating program called Procreate, which is very popular now, which is great because it's a very intuitive program and it's very user friendly for somebody who's just beginning with digital art. So that was one of the very first pieces that I had created, and it was inspired by my trip up north to ऊᕙᒍաթ in 2017, where I went up and a bit of a personal story on that is when my dad had passed away, he was cremated and wanted his ashes back up north with his family and where they were buried.
Mm-hmm.
So that was part of the journey, was taking his ashes up north and going to meet his side of the family, the biological family, the Bankslands.
Yeah.
And when I was there, one of my favorite things to see was just all these old ladies ripping by on quads and four wheelers, or Hondas as they would call them. Everything's a Honda.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with it. And it was in June, so it was 24-hour daylight.
Mm-hmm.
I very vividly remember waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and being so confused because it was bright, the sun was coming in the window, and hearing a Honda puttering outside and looking out and just seeing this little old lady. She's got her, her milk crate on the front, and she's going somewhere. She's doing something.
Yeah. She's probably heading home after playing late night cards.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's those kind of images I like to play around with and mess around with. Just fond memories. That kind of makes you wonder, like, what's the story behind this? And
Yeah. No, I love that, and I love the story behind it. ऊᕙᒍաթ, I've only been there once when I was 16, and it was the same experience. Well, I grew up here. I grew up in the north, in Tech. I'm used to. I actually love the 24-hour sunlight in the summertime. Um, the thought of being quote unquote a spring bird and going down south during the winter seasons, I don't know how I would do because it gets dark in the evening. My favorite thing is the 24-hour sunlight, but ऊᕙᒍաթ is a very special place. I love the community. I was there for the Oceans Day in 2006, I believe. And the ladies there they're so independent. Like, I watched I'm assuming she's an old Nanak. I watched an old Nanak like shoot a seal and then tell her young grandson, go get it now. Like, I never saw that in Tuck growing up. Like, I grew up watching my dad pull a whale in at the fish camp, like pulling the kilaluga, the beluga whale in, and then I watched my Nanak help cut it all up, like start the process of making mukduk. And that's what I grew up seeing. I didn't grow up seeing people shoot seals and eating seals and muskox because I grew up eating beluga whale and caribou.
right.
So it was interesting to go there and to see the ladies just, they saw a seal and they harvested it, and it went towards the Ocean's Day.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah.
seal
I
on the.
was when I was in ऊᕙᒍաթ, I was there for a jamboree. My
Oh
sister
wow!
was there for a jamboree, so we got to see um, like all these different competitions, and one of them was like a seal skinning competition. Another one was a fleshing and hide competition, and yeah, like you were saying, just all the strong Nanuks up there, just showing everybody how it's done. And yeah, like shout out to all the strong women in the north on this International Women's Day.
I will say, like, people who can like flush and um clean a seal skin, you have to have a lot of skill in it. I lived in Sax Harbor for a few years, which is just like the island over. And one summer I was like, I'm going to learn how to flush a seal and I'm going to have my own seal skin. That way I don't need to purchase one. And I sat there and my mother-in-law, she said, it's really hard. It's not an easy thing to do. And I was like, well, if I could do a muskox and a polar bear because I had flushed both, I can do a seal skin. In my head, I was thinking I could do that. And she said, even some grits of sand will cut a hole into the seal skin when you're on the board.
Right.
So I put the board down, I washed the board, cleaned it off. Halfway through that seal skin of trying to clean it, it looked like a fishnet. It was not salvageable.
Oh no.
And I never overestimate my skills in working with hides now. Whenever I look back at that, if I think I could do it, I'll definitely try, but I never overestimate that skill. Like, so
When I visit Inuvik, you're going to take me out muskox hunting.
we'd have to go towards like I think it's Wrangling Rivers where they have muskox around here now. They have moose. They have moose here.
Oh,
Lots
right.
of moose, and then you could go on either like towards the coast or the highway for caribou. We eat a lot more moose meat here. In Sax Harbor, we eat more muskox. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
that's actually another good segue into another way that I've tried to reconnect with my culture, being so
Mhm.
far removed from the north. Growing up, I wasn't involved in any sort of like hunting and fishing.
Mhm.
So after my dad passed away, it was something I kind of like took upon myself to teach myself, like, what's in my area that I can go out and hunt and um, literally sink my teeth into, and just kind of connect with my surroundings and the landscape and habitat around here. So I started
Mhm.
teaching myself how to hunt white-tailed deer and grouse and rabbits and snaring
Mhm.
rabbits and going fishing. So that kind of like really now it kind of colors everything I do. I see everything from a hunting lens and a fishing lens, and it's been my way of like connecting with wild country food.
And that's exactly what it is. Like, I feel an incredible connection when even we get to go for a ride and go ptarmigan hunting
Yeah.
on the highways. Yeah. Um, on our next list of things I'm going to get into, so you've done clothing, you've done design, graphic, and put onto clothing.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm going to pull up this one here. And can you please tell me a little bit about it?
Oh, so yeah, these were fun. This was just something I had a random idea about. Growing up as a skater, kind of fashion was always a thing. You always kind of wanted to be an individual, and um, yeah, this was taking old jeans, denim jeans, and
Mhm.
repurposing them and sewing them into a vest. Just a random idea that popped into my head, and it was another kind of hobby that I was just deciding, like, let's try sewing. Why not? Something to do. So my mother-in-law was kindly enough to donate her her sewing machine, and I just figured out how to use it and did a few projects like sewing button-up shirts and those vests. And then my sister, Kaylin, she actually did the hand embroidery, like the floral work on there,
Mhm.
and that turned out just absolutely beautiful. So shout out to Kaylin.
Who, your sister, you said?
Yep, yeah, she's my older sister. I have two sisters, one younger sister, Alexandra. Everybody calls her Tweety, and
Mhm.
my older sister, Kaylin.
She does beautiful embroidery work.
She does, yeah.
Yeah, the colors, and it's all so neat.
Yeah, she's really got an eye for it, and yeah, I just keep encouraging her to pursue art as well.
Yeah, no, I love beading and embroidery. The next one we have here is a t-shirt.
Yeah, so these designs I designed on that program I mentioned before on my iPad, Procreate, and you can take those designs and upload them to like a third party website where they handle all the printing and they ship it out to your customers. So it was just another thing I thought I would be able to provide for people who are interested in my work, and yeah, just give them an opportunity to wear it. And um, yeah, I mean, I think they turned out great. They were popular. A lot of people were kind of wanting to buy more of them, and it's one of those things where it kind of eats up a lot of time, and you want to upkeep it and provide those the clothing for people, but it's something I've just kind of put on the back burner for now. But I'll
Yeah.
definitely revive it soon.
Yeah. Do you see your sister?
Yeah, I just saw that.
And then we have one more item. Let's see if I could. There we go.
Yeah, so these ones were. This was done in a little bit of a different way. I had purchased a giant heat press and a vinyl cutter, and I would design these programs on Procreate and send them to my vinyl cutter and um, cut them out, weed off all the excess vinyl, and apply it to the garment with heat, basically. So I was kind of a little more involved and hands-on with the making of those. And yeah, I would just order, blank hoodies off the internet and apply those graphics. And yeah, those ones are pretty popular too.
That is something I think that I would like to do one day. Um, I just got given this. Um, I don't know. Do you recognize this?
Yes, yeah, that
Okay.
is the Inuit Art Quarterly, and the Inuit Art Quarterly is kind of Inuit Art Foundation's flagship program, and they've
Oh,
been yeah. So it's
so you,
basically Inuit Art Foundation's magazine.
you didn't design in this one then?
No,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Yeah. No. And then I have these. Now these are cool. My family uses these.
yeah. The playing cards, that was a great project. I was so honored to be asked to be involved in creating those. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, tons of work went into that. And these were all designed in that same program on the iPad, Procreate, which any artist can pick up a Apple Pencil if you can afford it, and
Mm-hmm.
start designing in that program, and the possibilities are like really endless.
Yeah, these are amazing.
Yeah, they turned out great.
Did you just do the illustration for them? Is that what you did?
Yeah, I just did the animal illustrations, and then I
Oh,
think there's also another one with like tools and um, a lot more like cultural um, items and objects.
mm-hmm. Okay. Just going through my list. And you also have gotten to work with Desaisac, right?
Yeah,
I know these things are like this was with Desaisac with ICS.
yeah,
And then so is this?
yep. I was involved in a lot of those, and yeah, I wrote a feature for it, and I want to give a big shout out to Jason for all the support, and also just encouraging my artwork. And I think that if it weren't for my involvement, yeah, early on with the magazine, and that I would not be where I am
You
today.
connecting, right? Oh, you're back?
Oh, a little bit of technical issues there.
Yep. So
Yeah, it's
this
just cutting out.
article that you did about reconnecting to your culture, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just wanted to show that. I think that's everything I have on my side. Oh, wait, I will show one more thing, and I know Jason's very proud of it, and that is,
Oh yes. Jason, yeah, he wanted me to paint a longboard for him. Um,
yeah,
so I ordered a blank longboard and hand painted it, and I did a little bit of kind of tattoo style on there, and that was a really fun project. I almost forgot about that, but
yeah, no, he uh, he said it was here at his office at ICS if I wanted to bring it in. So I was like, "Can you please bring it over here?" um, so thank you so much for describing. As you can see, we have quite the collection
yeah,
here at ICS and to SciSec of all of your work, and that's how come I said, my sister's an artist, but she doesn't really like put herself out there because I know these opportunities are available, and I could see you have, and this is a huge collection.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like with most artists, you just got to take risks and you just got to go for it. And um, yeah, if you got a crazy idea, just follow through with it, and you never know where it'll lead. I've been fortunate enough with my career as an artist that kind of one thing just leads to another, and then
Hmm.
uh, you never know who's going to see it, and it kind of just it elevates as your career goes on. And I've been very lucky to have some awesome commissions over the last few years. Like Parks Canada, I did some illustrations for Parks Canada. I
Hmm.
did a T-shirt illustration for Snotty Nose Res Kids. It was one of my favorite projects to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just leads everywhere, and that's what's fun about being an artist is kind of you never know what you're going to get into next and where it'll take you.
Yeah. Um, so for you, it's taken you to a very important role, correct?
Yes.
Mm.
So I'm the program officer at Inuit Art Foundation, and it was just again something I just threw myself at, hoping it would stick. Just submit a resume. You never know what could happen, and um, I was part of a residency that was in Montreal with a bunch of other artists, and I got to meet the president of Inuit Art Foundation,
Hmm.
Heather Igloliorte, and um, yeah, she caught wind that I had put in a resume for this position, and she's like, "Why not? Go for it." So yeah, I was very, very lucky in getting this position, and it's been great. I've been here for about 6 months now, over
Yeah.
6 months. Yeah.
Yeah. So, before we get into the part about the Inuit Art Foundation, I just remembered we do have a couple of clips of art, if we can bring those up.
Yeah. So this one is it was also designed in Procreate, so it's digital, um, and this kind of really speaks to like my art style now where I'm at. It's very much inspired by tattoo work and tattoo art, mainly like Americana and Japanese tattoos. I've always had um, an interest in tattoos, and I really wanted to kind of show that in my work. I've done a few tattoos of um, and it's something I've always wanted to get more into, but just haven't really found the time to do it. But this is very much inspired by Japanese tattoos and Japanese woodblock prints, and also inspired by like the early printmakers of ùvagut. And my grandfather and his sister. So my grandfather was Peter Lingnak Banksland, and his sister was Agnes Nanagat Goose, and they were some very renowned printmakers in ùvagut, part of the Holman Co-op. And I've got some of their artwork hanging up on my walls, and it has a very Japanese woodblock print feel to it, and there's like a very kind of beautiful relationship that goes on between Inuit printmaking and Japanese woodblock prints. There's a whole history behind it. I've also written about it for Inuit Art Quarterly. There was a feature that I wrote that describes that, and that's really where my practice comes from, is just trying to like merge those two worlds together, and I think it creates some interesting and unique pieces of work. And this is the same, taking a lot of inspiration from Japanese woodblock prints, really focusing on like the human form, and like people striking different poses, and very like just eye-catching garments and flowing garments, and just playing around with those ideas. And this was also a digital piece of art, and he kind of looks like a samurai, so just kind of replacing that with not with a samurai sword, but a knife to make igloos.
A snow knife.
Yeah, and covering him in furs. And this one is also very much inspired by Japanese and Americana tattoos, really. There's a famous traditional or trad tattoo, as people call them, image of a lady in she's sitting on a dock or a pier in water, and she's dipping her toes in the water. And I thought I would just swap that out with a piece of melting ice, and why not cover her in tattoos? And
Yeah.
And this one's, I'm sure everybody knows, the high kick.
That one's cool.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of like Inuit games and
The Arctic sports.
Yep. And so this one is very much based on like Japanese woodblock prints and tattoos, but swapping out that for more of a like an Inuit style. But yeah, just like the pose that she's in, it's very unique. It looks like she's surfing on a wave almost, but
that's the Alaskan foot high kick.
Yeah.
When I came in to do the interview, I briefly heard you talk about a mural. Do you mind talking about that?
Yeah. So I was commissioned to do a mural, which is currently on display outside of On-Site Gallery in Toronto. And I will be flying there. My wife and I will be flying there next week for a couple days to go do another artist talk about that mural and about my artist practice. But it's a huge mural, outside the building, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing it in person, because I see these pictures and I can't quite wrap my head around my work being that big on display outside of a building. So yeah, it'll be great. And again, the subject matter is very much based on tattoo art and flash art. So it's playing around with some very common images in Americana Tattoo Flash, but swapping them out to have some more Inuk style relevance.
Yeah. That's going to be a fun trip. It's going to
Yeah.
be exciting. Yeah.
Yep.
Before we move into the other portion, a lot of this work, I'm assuming you have accounts on social media.
Yes.
Is there a way where people can find your work and follow your work on social media?
Yeah, so I mainly use Instagram. I've always found it was just easier for artists mainly. It's just a lot. It's just very visual.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you can find me at my middle name, Natkusiak, Natkusiak.
Nicousiak. Yeah. So if
Yeah,
anyone wants to go, they can follow Nicousiak on Instagram. There you go.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And then so we're gonna move into the portion now that we've all been waiting for, and that is the grant, correct?
Yes. So my work at Inuit Art Foundation, a large portion of it was helping to develop our new grant program called Kayung Excel Grants, and it's in partnership with the Canada Council for the Arts. So it was co-developed, and um, it's a national Inuit specific funding pilot initiative, and over $100,000 to give out in grants through 3 different streams, um, and I can get into kind of the basics of each stream, and some of the eligibility behind each of the streams. But the first stream, I'll say the deadline March 19th because it's coming. It's very quick, so just I'll start with that. But yeah, like I said, 3 different streams. The first stream, Sutarutit, which in the South Baffin dialect translates to gain materials,
Mm-hmm.
and that's for artists, visual artists living outside of Ontario. And if you're a visual artist living within Ontario, there's already an opportunity that is pretty much exactly like what we are presenting here, but it's through Ontario Arts Council, and we are we're a recommender for that grant. So we wanted to bring that grant that's for Ontario artists, but we wanted to bring it on a national scale so that visual artists outside of Ontario have the same opportunity. And that grant is for either $500 or $1,000. And just like the grant name says, it's to gain materials as a visual artist. So buying things like, beading supplies, sewing materials, paints, paper, whatever your discipline is. But that one is specifically for visual artists.
Mm-hmm.
And the second stream of the grant is inikarvik, which translates to have space, and that one is for $3,500. And the idea behind this stream of the grant is to have it open for all disciplines, but providing artists with a bit of breathing room, so artists can kind of take a step back and think about new projects that they want to create, or finish existing products or projects that they want to finish, or explore or experiment or research new forms of media, much like how I was presented with the opportunity for a grant to do the same through Edmonton Arts Council. And that was just to kind of, you want to explore a new form of media. In my case, it was digital art, but I didn't have the means to buy an iPad and an Apple Pencil, which are ridiculously expensive, and just affording artists the time to be able to mess around with those new mediums. And I think it's really important to provide artists with that kind of opportunity. And yeah, the third stream of the grant is Turigak, which translates to vision, and that's for $5, $10, or $15,000. So some big grants there, and it's more geared towards artists who have like big, large scale projects in mind. And this one's also open to all disciplines. And yeah, like I said, this stream of the grant is kind of aimed at artists who really want to shoot for the stars with a big project that they have in mind, and yeah, providing the funds to be able to do so.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's all the application forms. You can download them at InuitArtFoundation.org, and there's also a link at the bottom of the screen there, which is great. And you can find all the information that you need on that webpage, and even more information about each specific grant when you download the application form. It's got all the requirements. And you'll need things like an artist bio, a proposal description, and depending on the stream of the grant, they vary. So like for Turigak, you'll have to have a budget. Yeah, but yeah, feel free to take a look on the website and review the specific requirements. And also on that webpage, further on down the bottom, there is something we've developed called the Helpful Hints resource, which also kind of goes into detail about applying to each specific stream of the grant, and yeah, kind of tips on what to include, especially for first-time applicants, because we really wanted to kind of break some barriers down with the granting process, because it seems like I don't know, some people, including myself, applying for a grant, it kind of seems like a scary process when you first apply for it, because you don't know what exactly granting bodies are looking for, and yeah, how to write an artist bio, and how to write a project proposal, and what's an artist statement, and those sorts of things. So we tried to compile all that information into a Helpful Hints resource. And on that note, there's also on our webpage, you can have access to some workshops there's a workshop on how to apply for this grant specifically, but there's also recorded workshops on writing an artist bio and an artist CV, and so some really great resources on our webpage. And we've also created something called the Artist Portal, mm-hmm. and that's another really great resource for artists to get access to those types of like workshops, and even connecting with different artists, which is a very important thing. And yeah, it's a really great resource for artists. And you can also find nationwide funding opportunities outside of the Inuit Art Foundation, mm-hmm. Which is huge. We've compiled all grants across Canada that artists can apply to, and just have them all in one place so that it's easy to find. Mm-hmm. Because yeah, as an artist, you don't even really know where to look and where to start.
Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that, because as an artist myself, I recently did an interview where, and one of the questions asked was, what's one of the barriers? I'm like, well, I started myself. I invested in my own work myself. and I really had no idea how to get into this realm. I figured out my own groove, but yeah, no, and it's really helpful that the Inuit Art Foundation, the website, is there for you if you want to develop or get into the realm of art. That's really nice to see that it's all in one place, where as it should be.
Yeah, and it's that was exactly what we had in mind, is just trying to make it as easy as possible to
Hmm.
find these opportunities and even connect with other artists. I think that's a huge thing too, is to having that connection and building those relationships. Because
Hmm.
artists tend to help other artists.
Yeah.
You really want to elevate your favorite artists, and you know, maybe there's some artists out there that you feel like should be elevated, and uh, yeah, it really helps. But yeah, any questions about the specific grant? People can find my information on the webpage too. All my contact information is on there. Um, and yeah, feel free to reach out, email. My phone number's on there. Um, but yeah, I'm
Mhm.
happy to
So
help.
this is open to everyone in Canada,
Yeah,
correct?
All Inuit across Canada.
All
Yeah,
Inuit across Canada. If you would like to apply for the grant, you can do so. There's three different.
yeah, three different streams.
Yes, and the deadline is,
March 19th, and that
yeah.
is approaching very quickly.
And then you have your work to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
Hmm.
also mention that these grants, they're reviewed by an all Inuit jury, or peer assessors as we call them.
Hmm.
So each stream of the grant will have a committee of three Inuit jurors. So it's another way of yeah, having like Inuit, like assessing other Inuit uh, yeah, applications. So I thought that was another really great um,
It's important to
thing.
have.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Okay. I think that's it for our show.
Awesome. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I really appreciate it, and it was a great discussion. I feel like.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for coming on the show. It was really nice to meet you. Hopefully, one day we can meet in person. I will go and follow you on Instagram right after this. And
Awesome.
I feel really lucky that I didn't even realize your collection was all over this. I love ICS and I'm here and I love my coworkers. And I seen some of this stuff. I just didn't know who the artist was. So it's nice to put a face to the name.
Well, yeah, I really appreciate it, and it was great meeting you too. And yeah,
Mhm.
I'd like to say thank you to everybody at ICS for all the support, and also my current employer, Inuit Art Foundation. Without the support of these two great organizations, yeah, I would definitely not be where I am today. And
Mhm.
yeah, just very much grateful.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to close the show now. So I want to say thank you again for coming on the show. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in and watching today's episode. Bye.
Kat, in mamana,